Does science make belief in God obsolete? Monsignor?
Well, if I did, I'd be out of here in a second if I said yes. I have a problem with the question because in my case, okay, put it this way. This is a question that I have had to face every day since it was first asked of me. I was asked the question when I first went into a non-religious atmosphere. Other scientists were all non-believers. When I identified myself as a Catholic, even a Latin Catholic, Latin American, they said impossible. It's absolutely, literally impossible. You cannot be devoted to the scientific method of looking at reality for 6 days, 5 days a week, 6 weeks, and then on the weekend you believe a dead man rose from the dead. I mean, you are either crazy or two persons or uncritical, etc. And frankly, when it was put that way, I experienced that in that case, what I understood my faith was indeed, and rather, that science was an obstacle to faith. But better, I was concerned that faith was an obstacle to science. I started from the point of science. That is what fulfilled me. That is what I was doing. So to me, the question was that, is faith an obstacle to it? Because if it is, then I am sorry, I would choose science. And so I decided to look into this. And this is something I do all the way to here. So I would not read Mr. Hitchens' book. I read it with enthusiasm and eagerness, because it is a question I must face every day. And so far, every day I've been able to affirm my faith. The day I cannot, I will not. I think that honesty is necessary, is needed. And if faith doesn't give me, is not the source of that honesty, then I don't want anything to do with that faith. It's not what I understand by faith.
We'll come back to the two people. Mr. Hitchens.
Just a word of preface. Salman Rushdie also drops one word from the title of my book. He says it's one word too long. You can probably guess which word that is. And Ian McEwan was once asked by an interviewer, I got the $54,000 question for you. And he thought, oh, Jesus, she's going to ask if I'm queer. And he said, okay, I'm braced. And she said, what's your sign? He said, Capricorn. Right away. She said, I knew that the moment you came in here. You've been so Capricorn throughout this. He let her rave on like this around. He said, actually, I'm Libra. And she said, without breaking in stride, she said, a lot of Libra people lie about their sign. Okay, so Gore Vidal once asked to your question.
Yes, sir.
Gore Vidal once, very well-designed question, if I may say so.
Thank you. I worked hard on it.
Gore Vidal once asked the late Sir Noel Coward, was it really true that he'd never had any sexual encounter with any woman at all? And Sir Noel replied, certainly not. Most certainly not. And Gore said, not even with Gertie Lawrence. And Coward said, particularly not with Miss Lawrence. A lot of people don't claim and can't claim to be scientists. I could particularly claim not to be a scientist. But I do understand something about the rules of logic and evidence, and about the logical and the probable, and the contingent and the non-contingent, and the sufficient and the necessary. And I think I'd have to say that Stephen Jay Gould understates things, at least, by saying that in an attempt at mutuality, that religion and science are dealing with a non-overlapping magisterium. It's certainly true that they don't overlap, but that doesn't make them any more compatible. They could still be, and I would argue they are, very difficult to reconcile. Why is that? Well, to be religious is not to be a deist, as I'm sure the Monsignor would confirm. Mm-hmm. To be religious is to be a theist. In other words, if what atheists cannot disprove, we don't say we can disprove it, we only say there's no reason to believe it, the existence of a God, they would only be deists. That's as far as you can get. The deist has all his work, or her work, still ahead of him to become religious. Because religion involves saying you know that God's mind. You know what he wants of you. You know what he wants of you in point of diet, in point of sex, in point of conduct, and doctrine and other matters. You claim, in other words, to know what I would say, without any hesitation, much more than any human being can possibly know. So I think religion falls so to say, at the very, very first fence. Because the believer is claiming access to a certain knowledge that is not possible for a human being to have. Whereas science must operate, can in fact only operate on the basis of objective inquiry that is driven by doubt, by skepticism, and by uncertainty. So what science cannot be compatible with is, shall we say, faith.